Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Lindsay.
And we're the Game Forum.
This is episode 9. Today we're going to take a look at the PlayStation 5 versus the Xbox Series X specs.
So starting off with the CPU for both, they both have 8 Zen 2 cores. The PS5, however, will be at 3.5 gigahertz, and the Series X will be at 3.8 gigahertz. Next up will be the GPUs, with the PS5 at 10.28 teraflops, 36 compute units at 2.23 gigahertz. With the Series X, however, it is 12 teraflops at 52 CUs, clocked in at 1.825 gigahertz.
So that's a lot of numbers and all, but what does that actually mean, Zach?
So the PS5 will have 36 compute units, which means that they're going to be overclocked, so they're going to run hotter. But the Series X will have 52 compute units, so it's going to be more stable.
Okay, that makes at least somewhat sense. Better than the computer techno jargon.
Yeah, it's all techno jargon.
So moving on to more techno jargon.
Yeah.
The PlayStation 5 has 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 RAM, and also so does the Xbox Series X.
Yep.
The memory bandwidth for the PlayStation 5 is going to be 448 gigabytes a second. The Xbox Series X has 560 gigabytes per second, so they're going to be pretty comparable. It's not going to make a huge difference between the two.
Yep.
So moving on to internal storage, the PlayStation 5 has an internal SSD hard drive of 825 gigabytes. The Xbox Series X has an internal storage drive of 1 terabyte, and it's also a custom drive. One thing I take away from both of these is these are really low numbers.
Yeah, especially with how big games are
Getting
being really... Yeah.
I'm like, right now, like the new Call of Duty is like 150 gigs.
Yeah.
And that's like a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One game. What is this going to look like on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X? Are we going to be seeing like a 300 or 400 gigabyte game?
It's possible with the amount of 4K textures that they're going to be able to do at the speeds that they're going to be able to do them.
And then all this new ray tracing technology.
Yeah. The uncompressed audio, which is going to be a major thing for a lot of developers to do. It's looking at insane numbers. And so you're probably going to have 1 or 2 games that can run at the PS5's SSD or the Series X's SSD. But then you're going to have to get external storage. I
am really hoping that there are other options for the primary hard drive for these consoles, because this is really small, especially starting out.
Yeah.
So with these hard drives being so small as the primary hard drives, both consoles are going to have the capability of having external storage with this as well. The PlayStation is going to have expandable storage slots.
Yep.
It looks like they're going to be able to take not just one internal hard drive, but multiple internal hard drives, which is great. And you'll be able to use any hard drive you want as long as it's compatible with the PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
On the flip side, the Xbox Series X is also going to be able to take expandable storage, but this time around it's going to be a proprietary storage system, which means you can only buy Xbox brand storage drives for this.
Yeah, hopefully there's no price gouging with that.
I am sure there was going to be at least some kind of markup on this.
Yeah.
Because all they're going to be doing is buying a Seagate drive.
Yeah.
Putting an Xbox case around it, and then upping the price for doing it.
Yeah. With the PlayStation Vita, they released their own proprietary storage device, and they charge, I think 16 gigabytes was like $100.
Oh,
and it was like that for a while. So hopefully this doesn't continue. With the external storage, though, at least they're both just USB. Yeah. So that'll work.
Well, I think... I think some of these are going to have the capability of having like internal and external storage as well from what I've seen.
And I don't know if there's external SSD drives yet. I'm not sure if that's a thing. Because you would want to keep your games running on an SSD. That's how they're designed.
Well, I mean, you can get like an external SSD drive right now. I mean, it's pretty well just like the standard hard drive, put in like a casing.
Yeah.
And run it off of the USB port. But I'm assuming that they're going to have options for like internal storage with some of this as well.
Okay. Yeah, I hope so, because it's going to be rough running off of what we assume is less than a terabyte for at least the PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
So going more into detail about the SSDs, I'll be speaking about the I/O throughput. For the PS5, we're looking at 5.5 gigabytes raw with a typical 8 to 9 gigabytes compressed. For the Series X, however, you're only looking at 2.4 gigabytes raw with 4.8 gigabytes compressed, but they do have a custom hardware decompression block.
So with that, it sounds like the PlayStation is trying some new stuff.
Yeah.
How does it actually translate to what these hard drives are actually going to be able to do?
So with the Series X, they're going to be doing the more traditional way to develop games, just much faster. However, the Series X does have the Velocity architecture, which allows 100 gigabytes of game assets stored onto the SSD to be instantly accessible for developers. Moving over to the PS5, they're doing things a little bit different. So their primary purpose is to remove bottlenecks. And they're going to do that by having a flash controller that gives 6 levels of priority, which basically means developers get to choose what game assets they want to load in. For instance, in Jedi Fallen Order, the elevators that are in the levels wouldn't be necessary because they're only in the game for the developers to give time to load in the rest of the levels. So when you don't need that, that can fundamentally change how games are actually developed.
So moving on, both of them have the same optical drive, essentially. Yep. Just a 4K ultra high definition Blu-ray player.
Yep.
Both consoles are also going to have different forms of backwards compatibility installed in them as well.
Very different forms.
Yes, the PlayStation is going to be looking at 4,000 PS4 titles being backwards compatible at launch, with the top 100 games on PlayStation 4 having a graphical boost on the PlayStation 5.
Yep. So for the Series X, it's going to be able to play back from the OG Xbox to the 360 to Xbox One, Xbox One X to the Series X all the way. Some games will be boosted using the proprietary hardware that is in the Series X, and that even goes down all the way to the OG Xbox games. So the original Halo, even though it's been remade, will be boosted to have like 4K textures, or not 4K textures, but it'll have a 4K resolution. It'll have a higher frame rate. The load times will be quicker. We haven't heard anything about the PlayStation 5 at this point, if those will be affected. And at this point, it's just rumors if there is even a PS1, PS2, and PS3 compatibility that they just haven't announced yet.
Mm-hmm. But we'll throw it up on the screen. The logo they had from the press conference does leave room.
It's an odd picture to put up with so much space. There's so much retail inventory there that they're just not using, and I think it's for a reason.
It looks like it could easily fit PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, and then PlayStation 3 Legacy Edition underneath the PlayStation 4 titles.
Yeah. I think this GDC talk that they released as a video was more of a deep dive into the architecture of the PS5.
Yes.
They're saving the rest of their ammo for the rest of the year. They're not going to unleash their full hand as soon as they go.
Yes.
They're going to hold on to what they can.
So overall, out of the specs, it looks like the Xbox is a much more standard style console. Is definitely a lot faster.
They're both super powerful.
Yes. They're both pretty close.
Yeah.
It's really going to come down to the system architectures. And it looks like PlayStation is really trying to optimize everything working together.
Yeah. So the Series X is going to have that number with the marketing. Most powerful console is going to have 12 teraflops as opposed to the 10 with the PS5. But the way PS5 is being designed, it is to make development much, much easier. And for third-party development studios, they're really not going to take advantage of this. We saw that with the Series X the Xbox One X versus the PS4 Pro.
Yes.
There wasn't really that much of a difference. There was some in some games, but it's really not that noticeable. So third-party games on the next-gen games or next-gen systems, there's not going to be much of a difference. They're both going to run at 4K, possibly 60 FPS. If you go any above 60 FPS, you're looking at small details.
Yes.
But the fundamental thing is the
ease of development to have smaller studios develop better looking games.
True. Yeah. And with first party studios, the Series X is going to have some beefy power behind it. Mm-hmm. But the developers have the same loopholes that they have to go through. with the first-party studios. However, for the PlayStation 5, this is going to, like I was saying, fundamentally change how games are made. There's not going to be any more elevator rides that trick you into thinking, like, oh, I'm just going up an elevator, when really you're stationary and it's just loading the level around you. None of that's going to happen anymore. When you're in an open area and you go through a tunnel to get to another open area, it breaks that immersion, and it's really just loading in the next area. So those will be gone.
All right, I think that's all we got on this one.
Yep. I'm Zach.
And I'm Lindsay.
And we're the Game Forum.